Welcome to Jurassic World Patagonia, the South American edition of our DLC speculation series. I want to preface this by saying that we've already received news of the upcoming DLC that Frontier has recently announced, which means new dinosaurs in the form of Troodon and Titan. It's not the ambition of a huge continental pack that I was hoping for, but it is a start. New dinosaurs are always a great addition. Anyways, let's get into this video. I've decided to name this pack Patagonia instead of South America, overall because only two sites that I've chosen that we are covering today are actually geographically outside of Patagonia. Furthermore, Isla Nublar already encompasses the Central American and Upper South American region, thus I felt this DLC reflects more of the Patagonia region of the South Argentina and South Chilean lands rather than entering into the sphere of influence of Nublar. Currently only the Giganotosaurus and Carnotaurus are present in this region in the game, the lowest number of species of any continent if you include Australia into Asia. So many fans understandably felt very disappointed this region seemed pretty overlooked, even though it arguably has more diversity than Africa and Europe. Regardless, this continent is definitely a carnivore and sauropod lover's haven as it is renowned for such creatures, and my predictions / selections will reflect that. Finally, as this is a completely devised up DLC pack with no lore or canon supporting it, we will jump straight into the species speculation. We start with a site that was teased in our previous Jurassic World Africa video. The Brazilian site is in fact the Romualdo Formation, an early Cretaceous strata part of the greater Santana group. At this site we will encompass two famous Spinosaurids, the first of which is Irritator. Irritator is known from a nearly complete skull, however was recovered heavily damaged and altered due to its acquisition from the illegal fossil market, hence its name. Irritator was believed to be 6 to 8 meters long and thus one of the smaller Spinosaurs known, and although most portrayals give it a brief sail similar to most other of its family members, the rest of the body is not known from any remains and thus can only be speculated. Likewise, the sister taxon Angaturama is known from more obscure material and possibly both are part of the same species. Although never making any canon appearance, it has been showcased in various mobile games such as Jurassic World the game and Jurassic World Alive, and presents an interesting addition for a smaller Spinosaur variety on a different continent we are used to finding them. Regionally, the Alcantara Formation is close by to the underlying Romualdo Formation, at slightly later age of the Cenomanian Late Cretaceous. Here it is home to the other Brazilian Spinosaur variety, Oxalaia. Extremely similar to Spinosaurus in North Africa, the existence of such a creature demonstrates the similarities between both continents during this time period. Oxalaia may have well been the largest theropod that ever graced South America, with many estimates from its limited remains putting it at equal or slightly surpassing the length of Giganotosaurus. The Romualdo Formation, or any site in the Brazilian northeast for that matter, would allow access to the South American Spinosaur variants that would provide great variety. This area and the specific site in general also yields an abundance in pterosaurs such as Anhanguera, Cerrodactylus, Tapahara, Tropiognathus and Tupusuara to name a few. Although marine and flying reptiles have been ruled out of the game, I still feel implementing flying reptiles is easier, and thus there is a slim future possibility. The Ischigualasto will be a familiar name to many dinosaur enthusiasts, as well as a hopeful site during the pre-release speculation for the addition of some Triassic period South American dinosaurs. As a site situated in the Carnian, it is thus the earliest dig site we have ever covered in this entire series. Of course, one of the major frontrunners for a place in the game is Herrerasaurus, commonly recognized as the most primitive member of the theropods. Strengthening its argument for inclusion is its prevalence in the Jurassic Park lore, believed to have been on the island in its own paddock during the events of the 1993 film and Jurassic Park the game, before being declared extinct by the Dinosaur Protection Group. As a result, many believed it would be part of the starting roster, and since it hasn't, its inclusion is now believed to be very soon. One of its counterparts in the soft canon Jurassic Park the game, Troodon, has already been announced. Zupaysaurus can be equated as the South American version of the Dilophosaurus, primitive theropods that were slender and agile and usually adorned some sort of head crest. Their hunting patterns would be probably similar to the aforementioned dinosaurs, utilizing agility and mobility over stock power, and may have hunted in small packs or pairs. Zupaysaurus has quite a distinct skull shape, but may be too similar to such dinosaurs as Monolophosaurus, Dracovinator, or Liliensternus, which are all similar aesthetically and fill similar niche roles. The Ischigualasto site allows access to extremely early dinosaurs, especially more Triassic representation, and a particularly important specimen in the Herrerasaurus. It is also home to some other famous primitive theropods such as Eoraptor that I've decided to leave out due to size constraints. We make our first forays into Patagonia proper and into the late Cretaceous with the Anacleto formation. It is the youngest formation of the New Queen group, which encompasses the majority of Patagonia exposed rocks, and thus consists of many well-preserved fossils such as dinosaur egg nests with embryos. Due to a lack of South American sites in the base game, the Abelisaurs are a very underrepresented group of theropods, with only Majangasaurus upon release, bolstered by the Carnotaurus in the post-release patch. Abelisaurus should be considered because it is the namesake archetype of the family group, with defining features consisting of stocky builds with short skulls and vestigial arms. Although they are medium-sized to large theropods, the Abelisaurus would have been usurped by the much larger Carcharodontosaurs. Aerosteon was so called because its remains offered evidence of pneumatization of air sacs within its skeleton, a feature birds use for respiration and to reduce overall weight. Aerosteon was initially believed to be an Abelisaurid, but now considered part of the late surviving Megaraptorans, which we covered extensively in Jurassic World Asia. This group of medium-sized, agile carnivores equipped with strong arms and sickle claws were essentially, as their name suggests, giant raptors. Aerosteon is extremely similar to another South American megaraptor we will not be covering called Murusraptor. Another contemporary to its family members, Orcasaurus is the most well understood Abelisaur, and formed a derived tribe with its closest relative, the Carnotaurus. However, it is much smaller than its brethren and featured even more extremely reduced arms, and almost a total lack of fingers. Like the tyrannosaurs in North America and Asia, the predominant hunting methods of these dinosaurs was thrust in their jaws, but rather than using crushing bite force like the tyrannosaurs, they utilized more of a shearing force to slash at the flesh of their prey. One of these possible prey is the Bonitosaura, a small-sized titanosaur that made an appearance in the mobile Jurassic World the game. It is otherwise not much interesting about this specimen besides the fact it helps to improve the small-sized sauropod variety and as a live prey for South American theropods. The Anacleto formation is one of the more fruitful localities, showcasing some strong carnivore possibilities, with some sauropods such as Entactosaurus, which I've chosen to omit because it doesn't really add anything unique to the game. The next formation, however, is renowned for its sauropods, and that of a particular species that has grown with immense fame in the public community due to its uniqueness. Amargasaurus will not be a surprise on this list for anyone. Any South American roster should really include it, as it is arguably the most distinct species, not just from this continent, but the entire history of dinosaurs altogether. Amargasaurus addition would be quite a statement of intent from Frontier, and their willingness to add in unique and diverse dinosaurs regardless of their connection with Jurassic Park lore. Another small sauropod, it sported 2 rows of tall spines running along its neck and back that either could be freestanding or supported a sail like this. As a member of the Dicraeosaur family with its origins in Africa, and thus from a continent with many examples of sails and long neural spines, it makes this hypothesis more plausible. Close by to the La Amarga lives another peculiar sauropod, the Augustinia, known from fragmentary remains and shrouded in confusion and mystery. Initially, it was believed that it sported heavy osteoderm arrangements and an array of wide vertical spikes that made it resemble something more of a stegosaur. Further studies have challenged this idea, providing an explanation that these were actually rib and hip fragments from the specimen. Today, the true appearance of Augustinia is still unknown, but I would like this dinosaur to be added into the game with these portrayals, as it wouldn't be out of the norm for InGen to adjust its genome to support something like this. The Huincul formation is one of the most productive outcrops in Patagonia, with its sweeping valleys uncovering many specimens of late Cretaceous Argentinian fauna, including the largest dinosaurs so far confirmed, their namesake Argentinosaurus. The lizard of Argentina is aptly named. It sets a precedent of this country producing the largest animals that ever walked the earth, and Argentinosaurus was definitely one of them, with estimates of its largest specimen at the Museo Carmen Funes, at almost 40 meters in length and more than 80 tons in weight, making it the longest and heaviest animal in the history of biological life from detailed studies. As a result, it would by far exceed any dinosaur in the game, a sizable margin over Diplodocus and almost doubling Mamenchisaurus. Consequently, there is an argument that it may be too large and too unwieldy to implement into the game. Argentinosaurus was probably impervious to any carnivore attack. Even juveniles would stand as imposing tasks to even the Giganotosaurus. Limaisaurus, otherwise a relatively obscure Rebbachisaurus, surged with interest with the Jurassic World evolution community due to its speculation regarding its possible appearance in the starting roster of the game. Although this obviously did not eventuate, I still feel it is somewhat of interest as it offers a smaller sauropod to pair with the larger titans from this continent, and with several specimens found at many Patagonian dig sites, it offers a commonplace and easy to access species. Marpusaurus was a large apex predator of its environment, only surpassed by the even larger cousin Giganotosaurus. As members of the Carcharodontosaurs, they were stocky and powerful predators, and probably the only capable hunters of the large titanosaurs that dominated these lands. Discoveries of at least 7 individuals during various growth stages around the formation suggest a possibility that the Marpusaurus engaged in some form of social behavior and or pack hunting, a trait that may have well extended to the rest of the Carcharodontosaurid family. We have already covered the Aerosteon previously as a member of the Megaraptorans, so a shout out for the group leader itself is also necessary. Megaraptor hails from the nearby Portezuelo formation of slightly younger age, of the Turonian to Coniacian age. Initially only its hand claw was discovered, which featured a recursive giant claw that resembled Dromaeosaurian sickle foot claws. Thus the early classifications of Megaraptor was that it was a gigantic dromaeosaur. However, the subsequent discovery of forelimb remains showed that the claw was actually attached to the first finger of the hand, and Megaraptorans were actually medium-sized, agile theropods with powerful elongated forelimbs as their modus operandi. The scorpion hunter was a medium-sized abelisaur that roamed these lands as a possible scavenger of lower trophic level predator in an environment otherwise dominated by the Marpusaurus, featuring the archetypal short skull and vestigial arm body plan that made it similar looking to such others in its group as Rugops or Rajasaurus. There is some overlap with the Orcasaurus that's not far north from here. Scorpiovenator is arguably the most famous species, however, due to its appearance in some media such as Planet Dinosaur documentary series, but so far has made no appearance in Jurassic Park media. As it is the most common with these South American sites, there is a strong semblance of sauropod variety coupled with theropod members from the Abelisaur, Carcharodontosaur and Megaraptoran groups, presenting a lucrative site rich with biodiversity and interest. Immediately underlying the Huincul formation is the Candelaris member, the only South American site in the starting game before the Lac Colonia formation was introduced in the Fallen Kingdom patch. Home to the Giganotosaurus, it is also the secondary site for the Limaisaurus, which we covered in the previous Huincul section. However, not much other species of note occur here. Buitroraptor is a shout, but is too small. There is also the Ecrixanatosaurus, the explosion-born lizard that was a medium-sized abelisaur. It's otherwise too similar to Scorpiovenator. Moving to northeastern Patagonia is the Allen Formation. It is one of the latest Cretaceous sites we will be covering in this video, spanning from the Campanian to the final Maastrichtian age of dinosaurs. We have here the largest dromaeosaur in the southern hemisphere, the aptly named Austroraptor. Standing as tall as a human and stretching up to 6 meters in length, the Austroraptor is closer to the size of the movie Velociraptors, and thus is an exceptionally large member of its family, although it does get superseded by some North American counterparts such as Utahraptor. With teeth that has been compared to Spinosaurs, Austroraptor may have partaken in piscivorous activity. As one of the sole interesting dromaeosaurs on the continent, Austroraptor has a strong basis for inclusion. Saltosaurus is well known due to being one of the first sauropods discovered to feature osteoderms and armor plating, hence its species name Loricatus. Regardless, it was a minuscule sauropod with maximum length of 13 meters, perhaps a lack of evolutionary pressure due to the smaller carnivores present in its immediate vicinity, like Ostroraptor, and thus Saltosaurus opted to armor itself up rather than grow bigger. Here, the Lac Colonia formation was added during the Fallen Kingdom patch to accommodate the Carnotaurus, but otherwise is a site of little noteworthiness. We move to the central region of Patagonia, and to the Cañadón Asfalto formation, one of the very few Jurassic sites on the continent, and the only Jurassic site we will be exploring in this video. However, we will also explore its sister site, the Cañadón Calcero site as well. The Cañadón Asfalto site is home to some famous theropods that dominated Jurassic Argentina, the Piatnitskysaurs. The first of these is Condoraptor, a small theropod that resembled somewhat of a Jurassic Tyrannosaur. However, these primitive predators were precursors to the megalosauroids, and thus the later megalosaurs that branched out into Europe and Africa during the late Jurassic, as well as the spinosaurs that likewise dominated during the early Cretaceous. Piatnitskysaurus itself and its body plan would shape the archetype of the group, developing sturdy builds with large skulls and developed arms that would be staple features for the later descendant groups. Initially believed to be related to Allosaurus, there were several differences, especially in relation to the length of the forelimbs, which indicated that Piatnitskysaurus and its ilk were much more basal than first thought. An interesting choice for small medium-sized Jurassic carnivores for the continent of South America. 25 kilometers north-northeast of the Asfalto site is the Calcero site, which features the Brachytrachelopan, one of the more interesting sauropods in that it features the shortest neck of any sauropod known. The small body and short neck is counterintuitive to the evolutionary path of the titanosaurs took in regards to this continent, which can be explained by the dicraeosaurs in general attempting to fill the niche of the smaller browsing herbivores. This niche in other continents are usually filled by ornithopods and stegosaurs during the late Jurassic, but otherwise vacated in South America due to the lack of those herbivore groups. In conclusion, the Cañadón Asfalto and its sister site, the Cañadón Calcero site, offer a brief look into the South American Jurassic era, and although not very diverse or fleshed out, gives access to important finds, particularly to the dominant Jurassic theropod group of the Piatnitskysaurs. The Cerro Barcino is a vast outstretch that overlies the Cañadón Asfalto basin and stretches almost the entirety of the early Cretaceous period. Whereas other Patagonian sites were usually alluvial deposits from floodplains or mudflats, the Cerro Barcino was characterized as an arid plain that was hostile and unforgiving to most dinosaurs. However, the desert landscape could have featured annual migrations of such dinosaurs as the Patagotitan, an immense titanosaur that was initially thought to be the new longest dinosaur when it was discovered, surpassing the Argentinosaurus. Current revisions, however, put it at slightly shorter length and lighter weight than its sister taxon. However, both animals are extremely similar. Due to recent popularity surrounding its discovery, it deserves a mention, but I'd very much rather consider the Argentinosaurus over it. Another titan that graced these lands was the Tyrannotitan, another dinosaur of increasing popularity from other forms of dinosaur media, but also made an appearance in the mobile Jurassic World the game. Similar to Giganotosaurus, Tyrannotitans seem to have been a direct predecessor of the former, dominating the early Cretaceous. The later Giganotosaurus did not evolve much from this successful body plan, which was later utilized to devastate the late Cretaceous. Tyrannotitan's addition would mean a total of 3 large Carcharodontosaurs over 10 meters in length from South America, the others being Giganotosaurus and Marpusaurus, a very healthy number of variety. The Cerro Barcino thus contains 2 of the largest dinosaurs on our list, only edged out by Argentinosaurus and Marpusaurus/Oxalaia, respectively. However, since this site contains a lot of overlap with existing species we've already covered, it is of lower potential and priority, but still interesting enough to warrant inclusion. In our final site, we move to southern Patagonia, to the Cerro Fortaleza formation, for a singular species that has recently been propelled, unexpectedly I might add, into Jurassic World film canon lore due to an indirect appearance in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Dreadnoughtus is a rather obscure dinosaur in the public eye, but it is known from the most complete skeleton of all giant titanosaurians, comprising of almost 50% from the remains found, while 70% of the post-cranial elements have been uncovered. More importantly, however, it featured as an embryo in the recent Fallen Kingdom movie, and thus a major contender for an appearance either in Evolution or the next Jurassic World movie. We've seen species such as Metriacanthosaurus that have been eluded in embryo form to eventually make game appearances, so therefore Dreadnoughtus has a surprisingly realistic chance. Our final dinosaur does not come from the Cerro Fortaleza directly, but instead from the late Triassic El Tranquilo formation, that is part of the same austral basin as the Cerro Fortaleza. In the interest of reducing the number of arbitrary dig sites, we will lump this rather obscure dinosaur here. Moosaurus received a mention due to a singular reference in the Lost World novel, as well as a comic appearance in Jurassic Park Redemption. Otherwise, it is a minuscule prosauropod with little of interest. That finishes off Jurassic World Patagonia. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, would love to hear your comments on my list, or if you have any suggestions of your own. That leaves us with just one continent left, but it is the most diverse and dense continent in relation to dinosaurs, which would mean it will probably be spanning into multiple parts. Subscribe to catch the North American edition of the Jurassic World Evolution DLC Ideas series. Until then. I'd like to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters. If you enjoy my content and wish to support me further, check out my Patreon link in the description.